What's going on, guys? I'm Tyler, and I'm here to let you know that Let Him Go is no perfect movie. And Let Him Go is about a middle-aged couple in 1970 Nebraska, played by Diane Lane and Kevin Costner. They have lost their only son in a tragic accident, and they discover that their daughter-in-law and grandson are being abused by her new husband, and that husband's family, the Wee Boys in North Dakota. Yeah, their names are Wee Boys. Yeah. So they decide to cross states in order to either rescue both of them, or if shit is really that bad, only rescue their grandson. And when I first heard about this, I saw the trailers that made this movie out to be a Western action movie starring Kevin Costner, but Diane Lane happened to be in it. But when I looked at the poster and I saw who this was being made by, it became very clear that this was going to be a drama with action scenes more towards the third act of the film. Because when you look at the poster, Lane's name is first and foremost, Costner's is second. And this is also coming to us from the writer and director of Selena Gomez's Monte Carlo. So I kind of knew going in that this was going to be more dramatic and intense as opposed to a straight-up action movie, and not going to lie, there are going to be people who walk out of this movie bored out of their minds because of the lack of action, the slow pace, the supposed lack of energy going towards the performances. Or you're going to be like me, and you found this, at first, a very quiet and subdued drama that doesn't actually have a lot of dialogue throughout the first 20 to 30 minutes of the film, but as these characters get deeper and deeper into their quest for justice, it becomes louder, more suspenseful, and a lot more impactful without really having to rely on action scenes or violence, but mainly through conversations and one-off moments that are carried immensely by so many great actors who already have a big reputation, but also some lesser-known actors who really do sneak up on you. All of the heroes in our main story have a very low-key way of either talking to each other or reacting to all of these horrific events that have happened in their lives. They all feel as if they've seen everything, but then when it turns out they haven't, you can actually see the slightest amount of disgust, but also restraint in their facial expressions at the exact same time, because yeah, they're horrified, they're surprised, but they know for a fact that if they react the way others want them to, they know that they're going to drop their guard and their enemies are going to win. And that was what made it so suspenseful throughout the entire thing, especially the scenes that are just between Diane Lane and Kevin Costner, who are both fantastic. They're not career best performances by any means, but in my opinion, they're some of the best acting all year just because of what they do with very little. For the first 20 to 30 minutes, as I said before, there really isn't that much dialogue because they feel as if, having lost their son, they've experienced the most amount of pain ever. They know exactly what they each have to say about it, and they don't want to say anything too obvious, so they just let their actions, their expressions, and their body language speak for themselves. But once they come into contact with this family, and things, of course, at first don't go their way, they have to be more vocal and upfront about their feelings and their thought process on how they're going to rescue their family members. And you can tell that they really don't feel comfortable with that because they all, as I said before, have a low-key tone in their line deliveries where the slightest times they ever raise their voices, it actually does feel a lot more impactful. And the great thing is, there's a nice little role reversal into each of their character arcs. With Diane Lane, the one thing that she is upfront about is that they've already lost their son. They're not going to lose another kid of theirs with the very little time that they have left. Because, yeah, they're not old, but they're not young either. So the idea of raising their grandson does raise some questions should they ever succeed. And with Costner, he actually spends most of the movie silently observing and analyzing the situation, rightfully so, as this never-ending domino effect that isn't really going to give them much satisfaction even if they succeed. The reversal comes with Costner realizing that Lane's plan, as very dangerous and convoluted and sometimes selfish as it can be, he does acknowledge that there really is no other way to get this family out alive. And with Lane, it's realizing that this domino effect does have a lot of terrible consequences that come from just giving out good deeds. Mainly her realizing that she can actually sometimes be very controlling and manipulative with her family members, which is exactly how she feels disgusted with the Wee Boy family. Lord, the Wee Boy family, that is a fucking stupid name. And thankfully, the villains in this movie are portrayed as being very pathetic, gross, slimy, typical redneck villains that you see in movies like this, which is kind of the main problem. As intimidating as they are, and as much as it leads to a really awesome and suspenseful climax, the family is led by a matriarch played by Leslie Manville from The Crown, and she technically does give a really good performance, but she's so loud and over the top, and her other family members are like that I know that's supposed to be intentional. You have this quiet and subdued couple matched up with this very loud and obnoxious, over-the-top hillbilly family. I know that was supposed to be intentional, but as I said with Diane Lane's arc, what was so interesting about the villains is that they do have some striking similarities where they are very controlling, manipulative, and they try to overpower each other with what they want to do with their own lives. I found that very interesting, and I felt that if they were a little more, I don't want to say subdued, but just dialed down a little bit, I think it would have been very interesting. The conversations wouldn't have just been awkward. They would have been awkward and very unsettling. But yeah, whenever I do see the villains on screen, not gonna lie, the intensity really goes down from there. But thankfully, it doesn't lose enough for it to not really be entertaining. But a part of me just sat there and felt, this is the Gerhardt family from Season 2 of Fargo, except even more pathetic. Hell, Jeffrey Donovan, I think is his name. He played Dodd Gerhardt in Fargo and was great in that. And he basically plays a slightly lesser version of that character, too. And he was really good in the short time that he had, but a part of me just couldn't escape the fact that he was just treading familiar territory. But outside of that, I know I don't have that many things to say about this movie, but Let Him Go was a legitimate surprise. It was very suspenseful. The music was simple and a little bit sappy in terms of the quiet and sad piano music that plays throughout the entire film, but Michael Giacchino's score was really good, and it set the tone for the film very nicely. And I also want to give a big shout out in regards to the performances. There was one actor in particular that I was dreading to see on screen, admittedly because he's a Disney Channel star, and not only that, a Descendants Disney Channel star, but Boo Boo Stewart in 10 minutes of this movie was actually really good. If anything, this movie proves that he can be a really good actor if he's given a good script. And it also proves that the director, again, of Monte Carlo with Selena Gomez can actually make a really solid and subtle film if he's given the opportunity to do so. And since Kevin Costner was a producer of this movie, no surprise that Kevin Costner would produce a neo-western, it definitely helps that he had clearly a lot more control with making this movie. But outside of that, I have nothing else to say other than if Let Him Go is playing near you at a theater, go check it out. It has really good, very subtle, nuanced performances. The direction, for the most part, is pretty decent. I like the 1970s setting that they give. It provides a lot of unsettling atmosphere whenever characters aren't saying anything, but the cinematography is a little generic. It relies more on just standard shot, reverse shot techniques that are still good to look at just because the actors are giving that good of performances, but there are other shots that just have actors kind of like half cropped with their faces or half their arms that look very distracting because of how sloppily they're composed. But again, it's the acting, it's the subdued writing, and the themes of how the heroes and the villains are very similar that make for a really exciting movie. And for all those reasons, I'm going to give Let Him Go a 4 out of 5. Guys, thanks as always for watching. If you have seen Let Him Go, let me know in the comments below. Tell me what you thought about it. Be sure to stay tuned for more reviews, and be sure to like and subscribe. Take care.